Welcome to Mindshock True Crime. This is your host, Bruce McGuire, and you are listening to the Maura Murray series, the longest running series on Mindshock. This is the live Q&A 3 featuring several new theories, and believe it or not, information we have not gone over yet. What you just saw was most of the video footage that exists of Maura Murray, which is kind of a mystery in and of itself, that apparently there's not a lot of videos of Maura Murray, a college-age student in 2004. I mean, you see all these other true crime cases, even from the 80s, where there's seemingly, a bit of video footage. And with Maura Murray, 2004? And there's not much. I mean, there's a lot of photos. There are a lot of photos. And even Julie Murray had a TikTok video. Actually, let me play the video to really illustrate the point here. If I could get it up. Sorry for the delay in starting the podcast. YouTube's going to be YouTube. Not a whole lot anybody can do. Wow, it doesn't want me to put the clip up. I do not discourage easily, however. Okay, let's see. Okay, should be able to get it up in just a few seconds here. So this was February 3rd, 2022. And apparently YouTube has frozen. Okay, now we're back. Okay. So this is 2022. Here.
Years. I haven't heard her voice in 18 years. Until today.
Yeah, we take picture alone. My mom left? No.
So nobody finds that strange. 18 years, no voice, nothing on. I mean, a few videos with no voice, no voicemails, no audio recordings, nothing in 2004. I don't know. Some people find that just a little bit strange, just a little bit. Last Sled says that was all new to me. Not much of a mystery for that era. I mean, 2004, what do you mean era? That's, even cell phone videos were starting to become commonplace in that era. But forget cell phones, just everyone had those little cameras that also did video. Or those, they had a lot of cheapo cameras starting around somewhere around 99, 2000, 2001. Everybody started having those cameras. So yeah, it's not strange that there's not a ton of videos from the 90s, but the early 2000s, I mean, there's video of everything. So, I don't know. I think that's just a little odd, maybe. I don't know. But I figured I would start with that, and her personality seems to come across, especially in this particular clip here. I don't know how old it is. I don't think it's that recent to when she went missing, because she does look a little bit younger here than in the video with Billy Roush. But let's get into the presentation here. A lot of new information, believe it or not. I mean, this is going to be one Mindshock after another. Apparently, YouTube does not give out notifications. We don't really have. I know there's a lot of Mindshock listeners who were here from the very beginning, and they're all about the Maura Murray case. No surprise that they did not get notifications. YouTube also seems to unsubscribe people from channels very frequently, so we've definitely been in the glitch era for the past at least year or so, 2-3 years. I mean, it is pretty rough, but hopefully everybody can manually check the channel. That's really the only way you can really see if there's a live going on. You gotta manually check the channels nowadays. Last Sled said, I wonder why Julie never saw that video until 2022. It is kind of weird. I mean, I haven't heard that, I don't think they had any kind of house burned down fire and they lost all their videos or anything like that. I mean, there's certainly tons of photos of Maura through Child. I mean, just all these photos, but apparently barely any video. I mean, it is kind of weird. It is kind of weird. Again, if you look at missing persons from even the 80s, the late 80s, plenty of video, and anything from the 90s as well. Oh, Miranda's one of the OGs here. I've been here because of this case. Yeah, there was quite a few. I mean, there were a lot of dedicated listeners. I mean, this is years ago now when Mindshock first started. And some of them occasionally chime in. I think a year or so ago, I put a post in the community tab, and some of the OG listeners did chime in there. But a lot of them also say they like to mostly listen and not chat. But anyway, let's get into the presentation here. And this might have more Mindshocks than any other Maura Murray episode thus far. And of course, this is live, so if anybody in the chat wants to chime in with a question or comment, we will address any and all questions and comments here. So, Wallaby on the Maura Murray Mindshock subreddit. I mean, this is one of the last researchers still active in this case. And we'll be going over a lot of their posts and what they've uncovered here. We've, of course, gone over Aldrich, who's been implicated in many a rumor. But, I mean, this guy's a criminal, a confirmed criminal. Here's a newspaper article. New York man charged in check case. Claremont, a New York City man who allegedly said he passed millions of dollars in bad checks in 3 states now faces federal charges in New Hampshire. Christopher Aldrich, 49, was arrested at Walmart store in Claremont in October, allegedly buying computers with bad checks. So we have another computer connection here. I wonder if there's any connections to Scott Wall. At the time, police said Aldrich told them he had passed bad checks worth more than $1 million at Walmart stores, more than $1 million at Sam's Club, and more than $2 million at Home Depot. The federal indictment alleges Aldrich wrote more than $21,000 in bad checks in New Hampshire, Vermont, and Connecticut. Investigators say Aldrich has close to 200 known aliases, criminal convictions in 10 states, and an arrest warrant pending in New York and New Jersey. Okay, so, I mean, just when you think the plot can't thicken any further, we went over the Aldriches in previous episodes and all of the confirmed cases, all of the trials, and their rumored involvement in the Maura Murray case. But if this is true here, we have another local who's dealing with millions of dollars. I mean, wow. I wonder how many other rings intersect here. I mean, for this little hamlet in the middle of nowhere, there sure is a lot going on. I mean, it's just, it's crazy. Here we have a sudden case of red pilling in the chat. I've been here since the start of the channel. I could see the vision back then, too. I do not recognize your username. Do you participate in chat or comments often? A sudden case of red pilling, or was that not your username at the beginning? Last Sled asks, Mindshock, have you ever had any feedback from Julie or any of the family? To my knowledge, the only thing that I remember Julie saying is that people should be asking questions when she was asked about all the podcasts. I don't know if she's ever specifically mentioned Mindshock. Mr. Pickle says, didn't that AI program say that Aaron Larkin is most likely to know what happened? yeah, it did, actually. If you haven't checked out the AI analysis. But the AI analysis can only factor in known info. So obviously, that doesn't really... It's based on the known information that was fed into it. Miranda asks, when did you start the Mindshock channel? The first episode. Well, let's check. This is gonna Mindshock some people. Only have a couple thousand videos on the channel, so it won't take long to figure this out. So, our first podcast was October 31st, Halloween, Are Monsters Real? Mindshock Episode 1, October 31st, 2017. Almost 7 years ago. That's crazy. It's only felt like a couple years. Well, that first year, I didn't really... There weren't that many episodes. It wasn't even one a month, I don't know. I don't know if it was even one a month back then. So, Aldrich here, I mean, just the plot constantly thickens with some of these individuals living in this area. So, let's move on to one of the biggest mind shocks yet. I mean, this is absolutely stunning. And I don't know why a bigger deal hasn't been made of this, because I mean, the chance for coincidence here, I mean, I guess the coincidence theorist will still maintain it's all mere coincidence. Actually, I went a little too fast. Before we get back to the Londonderry ping, let's finish up with Aldrich here. Wallaby actually made some bullet points on the entire Aldrich enigma with everything known about the Aldrich brothers and the Maura-Murray connection, if there is one. So this was Wallaby's post. As far as I know, C. Aldrich is unrelated, what a coincidence, to Virgil and David Aldrich. And that's curious, because C. Aldrich also has 200 aliases. C. Aldrich worked for a logging company. He drove a 97 Ford F-150 of an unknown color. Would it surprise anybody if it was red? So apparently C. Aldrich is the ex-boyfriend of Jessica C., who we went over, who apparently can connect a lot of locations in this case. So he lived in Claremont, New Hampshire, where Larry and Claude Moulton also lived. Supposedly, C. Aldrich took a polygraph in 2005 associated with the Maura-Murray case. Okay, so, Aldrich, it's not like a Smith where you could say, oh yeah, they're definitely unrelated, even though Smiths can be related as well. If a couple of these guys all had the last name Smith, that doesn't mean they're not related. Jessica C. told Fred Murray at a bar that she thought her ex-boyfriend C. Aldrich had something to do with Maura's disappearance. C. Aldrich apparently lived on Brill Hill Road back in 2004, rumored to have been at the River Road party where Maura was killed or accidentally overdosed, and the people at the party had to dispose of the body somehow. Again, we went over this rumor in previous episodes. A psychic who has done past cold cases named the two killers in Maura's case as two men named Chris and Jay. CA's middle initial is J, so you could say that his name is Chris and Jay. Weird, but obviously taken with a grain of salt. I don't know which psychic this was, because one psychic actually had the name Ben, which I postulated, and she also said something about Amherst, which I postulated could be Amherst. Amherst. If the messages from Beyond the Veil aren't that clear. And she also mentioned a Ben, but maybe that's Benton, because that was the area where the Forcier sighting was, not too far away as well. And we'll be getting back into Benton later. Continuing Wallaby's post here, I received a private message from someone who said they had spoken to the brothers, unclear of which ones, and that all focus should remain on Virgil. This person stated that C. Aldrich was not the one to be focused on, and that Virgil Aldrich had been doing this for many years and getting away with things. This person also said that V. Aldrich hid Maura's backpack up north to throw off investigations. Last things this person said about V. Aldrich was that everyone else is terrified of him and that he had a thing for females' eyes. Isn't this kind of weird that we have three different Aldriches, two of them brothers, supposedly the third Aldrich, which took a poly, has 200 aliases, supposedly unrelated to the Aldrich brothers, and all of them have some kind of criminal involvement in other cases. The coincidence stack here is just so stratospheric. Wow. Absolutely stratospheric coincidences. V. Aldrich was in the newspaper years ago for a group sexual assault against a boy's sister. All the men involved were charged except Virgil somehow. And we went over that as well. V. Aldrich drove a dark red truck. It looks like it had some type of fire department logo on the side of it and a single old siren on the top. Huh. Let's not forget there was at least one confirmed police impersonator in that area as well, in this hamlet in the middle of nowhere. A PI said that another Aldrich in Woods... Wow, what? So there's a fourth Aldrich in Woodsville had held his girlfriend hostage for a month in a cellar. I thought a newspaper article said that this was D. Aldrich, but I am not sure. And these last names are all spelled exactly the same. So there are possibly 4 different Aldridges that are criminals in this in this general area of this hamlet in the middle of nowhere. So, yeah. So now let's get to possibly the biggest mind shock in the entire case yet. Regarding the Londonderry ping. So if you haven't checked out the entire episode on Mindshock regarding this ping, check it out. I'm not going to go over all of that here. Supposedly there was a phone call made to Maura Murray's phone from the Londonderry area, although there's still speculation that it possibly could have been Londonderry, Vermont, and not Londonderry, New Hampshire. Both Londonderry, Vermont, and Londonderry, New Hampshire are not that far from Amherst. You can see on the map here with the distances. Londonderry also 65 miles from Hanson Moore's hometown. And Londonderry, New Hampshire, 110 miles from North Haverhill. Londonderry, Vermont, 95 miles from North Haverhill. Londonderry, Vermont, 45 miles from Goshen, where there was that famous party. Okay. So, here are the developments. And this is once again brought to us by Wallaby, pretty much the only one left seriously investigating this case. So, Wallaby writes, "This makes no sense to me. Tim Westman's work phone number, used by him in February 2004, was also used by a female who was the same age as Maura from Londonderry, New Hampshire. The number is still currently the work phone for Tim Westman. So was this someone working for him in 2004 question mark? So this KT individual, born 1984. Huh. Work phone. So it's actually listed as a work phone. So Tim Westman, of course, of the Westmans, Faith Westman, of course, across the street from the staged accident scene, where she mentioned that there was a man smoking a cigarette in the Saturn. Tim Westman, her husband. Now, it has been long speculated that the Westmans know a lot more than what they have said. Now, why is Tim Westman's work phone number calling Maura Murray's phone? February 2004. Is it all mere coincidence? Because you would think that something like this would be of critical importance. Some might even call it a smoking gun. Or a partially smoking gun. I mean, this is very, very curious. I certainly do not have an explanation here. But the coincidence stack has been a mile high for quite some time now. So people discussing this on Reddit say that people that live with other people somehow have matched numbers. But again, the coincidence here, if these two people don't actually know each other, how could they not know each other? Because if there's a shared address, or did they simply have a shared address at one point in time? But it says work phone number here as well. I don't know. So obviously, this isn't confirmed that this was the number for the Londonderry ping. It's simply that there's an individual listed here who lives in Londonderry, who had the same work phone number as Tim Westman. I mean, nothing in this case is really confirmed. I mean, I guess the only thing we could say that was confirmed is that Maura's Saturn was at the scene, although without without definitive release of those photos taken by Cecil Smith. I mean, I'm not even 100% sure we could say that, but there was a vehicle there. The Westmans were across the street. They called the police. We have the transcript that clearly states that there was a man smoking a cigarette in the vehicle. So, I mean, that's pretty much all we have. If there's a connection to Jessica C here with this individual, I think that might be enough to tie it all together. If this KT individual is connected to Jessica C, who's connected to the Aldridges, then possibly it would all tie together. Alright, let's move on to what is supposedly Karen Mayott's statement that she left on the original Maura Murray family website, no longer online. And it's curious. I mean, this is a very, very curious statement here. Does it add up with other statements? Because we have changing timelines. There's so many issues with Karen Mayott's account. I, redacted, was working as a security supervisor on the night of Thursday, February 5th, 2004. My job involves rotating to the various residential dorms on campus and checking in with the security receptionists. This Thursday night, I was visiting the various residential areas after leaving Northeast Residential and Orchard Hill Central Residential. I made my way down to Southwest around 12:50 a.m. Well, there goes that earlier narrative. And this was on the original family website, very close, or much closer to the time that it happened than all of this conjecture after the fact, years and years and years later. Upon checking a few of the buildings in Southwest, I met up with my fellow supervisors, redacted, in Kennedy and checked in on their night. They advised me that my friend Maura Murray was visibly upset in Melville after receiving a phone call while on shift. No mention here of whether it was the landline on the desk or Maura's cell. I asked them the nature of the phone call, and they said that Maura was too upset to talk about it. I then immediately headed to Melville to check up on Maura and entered Melville at 1:20 a.m. She seems pretty sure of all these times here. As I entered the building, I immediately noticed Maura looking extremely upset. She was, if people are saying 1:20, 12:50, I mean, these aren't really rounded numbers. They might say 1:30, 12, 12:30. I mean, these are very specific times here. As I entered the building, I immediately noticed Maura looked extremely upset. She was staring at the security desk while being face to the door while muttering something to herself. I walked up to the desk, and as I approached her, she looked up at me and then looked down at the desk again. I asked her if she was all right, and she failed to verbally respond and instead just shook her head sideways. I then told her I heard from the other supervisors, more than one other supervisor, that she received a phone call, and I asked if it was a family emergency. She said, quote, "No, nothing to do with me," end quote. So, I mean, this does not seem like a catatonic state. I mean, there's clearly back and forth verbiage here, according to this account. I then asked her if she wanted to leave work half an hour early, telling her that I would call the head supervisor immediately. She responded no. So she did not want to leave work early. I asked her what the phone call was about, and she started crying and muttering word under her breath that I could not understand. I asked her again, telling her I was worried about her, and she said, quote, "No reason to leave. It's my sister, not me," end quote. I asked her if something happened to her sister, and she responded, quote, "It's my sister's problem, not mine," end quote. And she started visibly shaking while crying silently. I mean, so this is a back and forth conversation here, and it's a lot more than just my sister. I mean, wow. Karen's got a lot of questions to answer here, because this account is so specific. Are all the coincidence theorists going to hallucinate that she just misremembered all of this and all the times and all this entire conversation? I then hugged her while she sat at her desk without saying any words, and then a resident approached the desk waiting to sign someone in. I signed the people into the building, then hugged Maura again. I then told her I had dealt with an emotionally difficult situation in the past, and I had talked to a counselor, and they did a great job helping me out. I asked her if I could bring her to talk to someone on campus right now, and she told me, quote, "No, it's my sister's problem," end quote. I asked her once more if I could bring her to talk to a counselor, and she shook her head sideways, indicating no, and I decided that as many times as I asked her, she would not be willing to go talk to a counselor that night. So this doesn't really seem like a catatonic state. This is just, she's just upset, and she's still carrying a back and forth conversation. Okay, so I then wrote down my number on an empty sign-in sheet from her receptionist binder and told her to call me tonight or any other time if she needed someone to talk to. I asked her if I could bring her to Dunkin' Donuts after work so she would be able to have someone to talk to, and she told me, quote, "I'm too tired. I need sleep," end quote. Again, this is a back and forth conversation here. This does not seem like any kind of catatonic state. I then told her that I would bring her to breakfast in the morning to try to cheer up, and she responded, quote, "I have a class I need to go to," end quote, while pointing to a large nursing textbook on her desk. I then told her the professor would understand if she couldn't go due to a family emergency, and her only response was, quote, "I really need sleep. Thanks," end quote. At this time, it was around 1:30 a.m., and I decided to pack her up and get her off her shift myself, which is against security policy. Normally, I need to contact the head supervisor on that night, redacted, and ask if the receptionist could go home, but I trusted my own judgment, knowing that she would not be working. I mean, the screenshot cuts off there. So, yeah, I mean, this is quite different. This is quite different from all the accounts that follow. So this, again, according to Wallaby, this is from the original family website. Early on. Not anything from the past decade. And Karen has since changed timelines and stories several times now. A lot of inconsistency. And for whatever reason, they're giving her police her UNPD statement, the Area 51 treatment. What is in it? Wallaby asks, I can't help but wonder if this problem had something to do with Maura ending up in New Hampshire and possibly Tim Carpenter. A friend of Kathleen Murray's has reportedly given a statement. This is from, again, from the old website. Reportedly given a statement to New Hampshire's cold case unit about how she believes Tim Carpenter is responsible for what happened to Maura Murray in 2004. The story goes like this. Kathleen met Maura on Monday, and Maura was driving her to a rehab facility in New Hampshire. But Tim Carpenter followed them to Route 112, where he raced ahead of them and braked, causing Maura's car to smash into the back of his red truck. Then he put Maura in the trunk of the Saturn, while Kathleen drove further, only to get in an accident by the Weathern barn. Following the accident, Maura and Kathleen were put in the truck. Maura's body is said to have ended up at a landfill in Massachusetts. And people have long postulated that if it was Kathleen driving the Saturn, would Butch Atwood, the least reliable party, would he mistake Kathleen and Maura in the dark across a street? The coincidence theorists hallucinate that no, Butch is an infallible god no matter how many polys he fails. That's what the coincidence theorists maintain. But the Tim Carpenter theory, not exactly this particular theory. This is the first time I've read this specific theory where Kathleen and Maura were driving up and Carpenter followed them, causing some kind of a crash. And was that the earlier accident? But if this is all true, why would local PD cover all this up unless... I've also postulated this. If Williams, the police chief who allegedly liked to drive around drunk, if everyone thought it was him, even if it wasn't, they put in the cover-up because they thought it was him, even if it wasn't. What are they going to do after the fact? Admit to obstruction and cover-up, even if he was innocent of that particular incident? Do goofs really hallucinate that law enforcement would take that kind of responsibility? It also doesn't really answer the questions about the Patrick Massey hit and run. I mean, yeah, nothing makes sense about that or all the silence at UMass. Because even if local New Haverhill cops were covering up for a drunk police chief, even if he was innocent, why would UMass cover all this up? As I've been saying this for dozens of episodes now, if there was some kind of upper agency involvement, some kind of undercover FBI agent or DEA agent, I mean, obviously, we have the largest drug busts in history occurring at the dorm at UMass here. It's there's so many coincidences. If there were upper agency involvement, then it would actually make sense that there's all this cover-up going on. But if there wasn't, I mean, how can you account for all the variables? Alright, let's move on to a Bruce McKay theory. This is a new theory. So Bruce McKay, who is apparently off the radio, off contact. This is Officer Pepper. I mean, he liked to pepper spray old ladies. I mean, this is the kind of cop this guy is. Apparently, there were rumors that he was at the Nootka Lodge, which is where supposedly some out-of-town pornographers just happened to be. Just happened to be there that night as well. I mean, just in this hamlet in the middle of nowhere. It's very curious. Now, another connection that we went over recently on the last Q&A, or the one before that, is the connection with Stefano. So supposedly Stefano, or Stefan, his wife Tracy, were swingers, and they were friends with these pornographers who were there February 9th to 11th, 2004. How coincidental. And some theorize that they're also friends of the Aldrich brother, or not the Aldrich, this is the U brothers, not the Aldrich brothers, the U brothers. There's also the G brothers. There's at least 3 sets of brothers in this case, in that area. Also, coincidentally, supposedly Tracy, Stefano's wife, was working in Londonderry. Now, is there a connection with this KT individual and Tim Westman and Jessica C. and the Aldridges? If there is, does it all make sense? Wallaby also uncovered that the police chief of the town of Benton was one Stefan Simikowski, was the chief of police in Benton. That's very interesting, isn't it? Now, is this the same Stefan or Stefano? I don't know. Maybe there's more than one Stefan or Stefano. Wouldn't be surprising in this case. So here's this new theory from Wallaby. I mean, it actually has components of a previous theory that has been discussed, which is the alleged suicide of Kathy Brunel. And Wallaby uncovered these old posts here from I think this is Topics. Lady Gray wrote, rumor number 1 is no surprise to me. Rumor number 2, why would a policeman from Franconia and a policewoman from Woodstock arrive in the same car? Are you saying they responded to the scene, meaning they were there, or are they saying they approached, meaning they headed in that direction? A distinction between the two. This is the kind of thing that's important in reporting writing. Okay, so this poster, Moses, said, lurking for a long time now, but I've heard a similar rumor. I thought I would post what I have heard. The rumor surfaced after Kathy Brunel supposedly took her own life. A group of northern New Hampshire people were planning to offer Maura's family manpower and ATVs to search a place called Glencliff on Route 118. I don't know if any such search occurred. Because there was mention of Glencliff, my assumption would be that they were supposed to have taken Maura there. This is only my assumption. My thought at the time was also that what would a Franconia policeman and a policewoman from Woodstock be doing in the same car? Then I found the McKay Motel thing, which I also thought was very odd, because, correct me if I'm wrong, it seemed he was out of his jurisdiction. I proceeded to ask around about Kathy Brunel, but found only that quite a few people think she did not end her own life. I was never able to find out where she was on February 9, 2004. It was said that McKay and Brunel were headed west in a car and picked Maura up. It is not known if they were at the scene where her car was, but were supposed to be heading in that direction. None of this was ever really verified that I have heard about, and I am inclined to believe it was rumor. Sometimes, though, I do find that there can be some truth hidden in a rumor, so I listen at all times. So I don't know if this is a local who posted this, but this is curious because there was also the Cecil Smith alleged suicide with 2 guns after his visit from police. There's also another post here. There was a man and I saw the girl just minutes before. I stopped looking when I saw a school bus driver with the... And I didn't see her once the school bus driver left. See what I mean? I was wondering about the dogs. Did they have the dogs go back and forth from the car? Did the dogs circle at the place of the car and walk straight shot to the school bus driver driveway? Or did they keep going back and forth? More importantly, how did they act at the car? Once again, Butch Atwood did not park as normal that particular night either. As for Kathy Brunel, if you read up on old stories of her and the way she was found, most thought she did not do this to herself, even though she was allegedly drunk. There was something coming up and she was to testify about something. Not sure how that went. Might read up on it again today. This kind of reminds me of Tom Conrad, who was killed in his driveway, North Haverhill, September 05. Also a cold case. I wonder if there's a connection between Conrad and Brunel. Because then we have a triangle here that would connect McKay, the Nude Collage, Stefano, possibly Jessica C. and the Aldridge brothers, as well as this KT with the phone number in Londonderry, if there's a connection to Jessica C. there. Now, the one thing I will say, just looking at just the totality of all this information, if solving the Maura Murray case unravels, let's say corrupt law enforcement were not responsible for her death, but let's say that solving her case would unravel a whole bunch of other law enforcement corruptions. Would that be enough for them not to want to solve the case? Even if it all goes back to them covering for Williams, the drunk police chief, thinking he was responsible when he wasn't, and that everything will unravel from there with all this other local corruption. Quite mind-shocking stuff here. I mean, all these cases just unsolved. All these alleged suicides. No independent verification or investigation of them to verify whether they actually were or weren't suicides. I mean, this is tough. Let's go down another rabbit hole. Does anybody know who these people are in this photo with Maura Murray? No date. Anybody want to take a guess here? This is Maura Murray with the McDonald's. Yeah, that's right. These are the McDonald's who people are claim. I mean, there's a whole bunch of different claims regarding the McDonald's, but these are the same McDonald's. These professor. I mean, he's a professor at West Point, supposedly Bill Rausch's mentor. So they dropped everything to travel from West Point to go interview neighbors. And Bill Rausch's parents go the 700 miles from Marengo, Ohio. Bill Rausch allegedly flies in 1,710 miles. I mean, this is crazy. How many people's former professors, not current professors, former professors would drop everything they're doing and go interview neighbors? Now, the theory, now that this image has surfaced with Maura Murray and the McDonald's, clearly it seems they have met on at least one occasion. She seems very comfortable here, possibly many occasions. Now, again, another coincidence the coincidence theorists love to write off is the announcement of the investigation into various abuses at West Point. Is it possible that McDonald himself, again, I don't claim anything is true or untrue, I just go over every single possible theory. Many of them are mutually exclusive. They can't all be true, they can't all be false, if one of them is true. But if McDonald himself was responsible in some way, would that motivate him to drop everything and go find out what's going on with Maura? So there's this announcement that Thursday night during the alleged breakdown in catatonic state, which we don't even know about. There's just so many overlapping issues. Clark Rice in the chat says Maura Murray was reported seen alive at West Point in 2013 to 2014. Do you have a source for that, buddy? Why, if she is alive, why would she go back there in 2013, 2014? Oh, you're the source? You saw her there? Well, tell your story then. What was the context there? You were attending West Point? You're a West Point cadet? What's going on? Clark says, I reported it to New Hampshire State Troopers. What was the context? Oh, you're a former professor? Did you know McDonald? What was the context of how you saw her there? She was there visiting somebody? Like, what was... So Clark says he does know McDonald. So did you talk to McDonald? Did McDonald ever talk about Maura Murray or the Maura Murray case, or why he dropped everything to go search to go? This is allegedly just a DUI walk away. And again, McDonald allegedly on the phone with Bill Rausch at the time of the staging of the Saturn. Clark in the chat says, saw her on campus with 2 children. Interesting. Well, that's going to bring me to my next point here. Was this Maura Murray at the Star Wars sighting? Oh, Clark says saw twice in one day. What was she doing there? Just walking around? Alright, I'm going to play the clip here from the... Clark says this is a West Point case. I'm going to play the clip here of the Star Wars sighting, and let me know if one of the children looked like this girl here. At all the more, and then looking at all the Maura Murray sightings throughout the years, I mean, that Star Wars sighting where someone who looks like Maura with a kid, I don't know if that individual was properly identified. Now I'm not saying, obviously, don't dox the individual, but have law enforcement they could at least say, oh, we found the individual, it's not Maura. They could have at least said that, or someone said that. The individual was identified. Obviously, don't reveal the identity of some random person to open them up for some stalking with the psychos involved in this case online. Clark, did one of the children look like this child here? So Maura would have been... Did the woman you saw look like this woman in the Star Wars sighting here? Another coincidence is that Maura's birthday is Star Wars Day. Would that give her added incentive? I mean, it kind of looks like her, I have to say. It kind of looks like her. Okay, Clark, you're saying yes? One of the kids looked like this kid here? So, supposedly the date given here is... I actually don't... I don't know if a date was ever definitively stated. But if it was all these years later, Clark in the chat is saying that he saw Maura Murray at Fieldhouse running a course for a PT test. She said, "I used to run." So she would be what? So if you're saying this occurred in 2013 or 2014, so she's in her 30s here? And in this video, she'd be in her 30s. Clark says, didn't notice the kids that much. They were just kids. What is it? Was it a boy and a girl, or two girls, or two boys? Clark says, I have a lot of info regarding West Point shenanigans. And there are definitely a lot of West Point shenanigans. Clark says there was a rape club. I know you might not want to say, but are you was McDonald involved in this club in any way, or Bill Roush? Clark says bingo. Wow, that's mind-shocking stuff. So you reported all this. Did you report this to the higher-ups at West Point, or are they involved? So you reported all of this information to New Hampshire State Police. Who else did you report it to? Clark says, my report is public. So I might have some sensitive questions. So Clark says, I told James Renner I was interviewed. So you were a professor and you continued being a professor while you knew about this club, or did you leave upon learning of the club and reporting all this information? So what do you believe happened in this case? Clark says, Renner thought I might be right. Clark says, I was on active duty. Okay. So, why would Maura have returned to West Point in 2013, 2014, to be doing a PT test in her 30s? Do you have a theory on that? So you're saying Roush McDonald and Maura's sister Julie, what, they all knew all this information? Is that why she left West Point? Clark says, no, she wasn't doing a PT test. Wait, were you were doing the PT test? And she was just walking by with two kids and said, I used to run? She was at the place she used to run. Okay, do you have a theory on why she returned to West Point with her 2 children in 2013 and 2014? Who was she with? Was she with law enforcement? You talked to her. Clark says we chit-chatted. Clark says, I think she needed a new ID. Hold on a second, Clark. Why would she return to West Point if there was this club and she was assaulted by either Bill Rausch, McDonald, whoever? She's going back there 10 years later for what? Was she by herself? And why would she bring her 2 kids? And maybe they're not both her kids. I guess you wouldn't know that. But who was she with? Was she with other people? Or was she by herself? Clark says, I think she has support there. McDonald is still there. So she was there to see McDonald? Wait, so hold on a second. You need to clarify these statements. So Rausch, McDonald, and her sister means what? Were they part of this club? Why did she leave West Point? What do you believe happened? So are Rausch and McDonald the good guys here? And something else bad happened and they came to help her? Clark Rice says part of club. Take your time and write out a paragraph. Because your quick answers are tough to understand. You don't know why she left West Point, but you're saying this is a West Point case. I'm going to need a summary of this. Anybody else in the chat have any thoughts on this? I mean, I always did think West Point was very, very strange. I did 3 episodes on Shadows of West Point. Actually, did I do 4 episodes? I did a lot of episodes. Yeah, I think I did 3 episodes on Shadows of West Point. It seemed more as life trajectory changed dramatically, and that something might have happened at West Point. But anyway, this photo with the McDonald's is just quite interesting to me. So she has a friendly history with the McDonald's. Clark in the chat says, here's what I know. I was a professor at West Point. I was made aware of a sex club. Well, that's a lot different than some kind of assault club. If it's all consensual, that's completely different. Kind of like a fraternity, sort of. Sister was part of it. So Julie Murray was part of it? Okay, so you're saying McDonald, Rouse, and Julie Murray were all part of it, but it was consensual. Okay, now you're saying not consensual. Okay, well, that's weird. There's various articles regarding this. I mean, New York Times, 2004, sex charges investigated at West Point. Quite a lot of shadiness going on there at that time. And for years prior, according to many of these alleged victims. Clark says, I know I saw her at West Point twice on the same day in 2013, 2014. I reported it to New Hampshire State Police. They interviewed me. The first time I saw her, she had 2 kids with her, like maybe 4 to 6 years old. I saw her on Flirtation Walk. It's a secluded nature walk where cadets are allowed to have girlfriends. Later in the evening, I saw her again alone going through the side entrance to the field house. I mean, this does sound kind of strange, doesn't it? If she disappeared for 10 years, she's in hiding, she doesn't want to be found. I mean, West Point's kind of a high profile school. Why would she go there, or at least not in disguise? Was she wearing sunglasses? And you talked to her? What else did she say? She used to run? That's all she said? So Clark says, as we passed, I said hi because we recognized from before earlier in the day. She was looking sadly. She said, I used to run. I said, well, the PT track is right there. I did not know anything about the case then. Later, I saw a show on TV and it was like, wait, West Point Cadet, and I knew immediately it was her. It's an interesting account, Clark. Very interesting account. Now, again, West Point in 2013, 2014, I'm assuming there's a lot of surveillance cameras at that time, correct? Clark says, no cameras, not then, now, yes, only at the gate. You're saying there were no security cameras in 2013 or 2014 in the outdoor areas at West Point? Believe it or not, yep, now there are. Okay, well, if there was a security camera at the front gate, they would have still had her going in, right? Clark said that's exactly what New Hampshire State Police said and asked if the driver has ID. The car goes through with all occupants. Now ID cards are scanned, then it was just cursory flag through, especially if your vehicle had stickers. Okay. Okay. Did you get the impression that she went there frequently? Or that was the only day she ever went there since leaving West Point? Yeah, I'm not talking about the security issue of her getting in. I'm talking about the security cameras that would have recorded her getting in or walking around or whatever. Certainly, if she's going in to get a new ID at some administrative office indoors, there would be cameras there. There might not be a camera on some kind of trail. Clark says, no, dude, no cams on campus at that time, period. You're saying there were zero security cameras all throughout the West Point campus, administrative areas, everywhere in 2013. Period. Crazy but true. Clark says, I felt like maybe it was a visit. It was about 10 years later. I'm still having a hard time to believing there's 0 security cameras at West Point in 2013. Heck, even in 2005, 2010, I would think there would be some. I mean, UMass installed them in the late 90s or something, and then they installed even more in the years right before 2004. But you did say there was a camera at the gate. So if she was, let's say, laying down in the back seat, I guess the camera might not see her, but Clark says she seemed motherly with kids. Clark says Renner wrote me an email. I left it alone. She's alive. Let it be. Whatever. I have the email. I reported it. The authorities took me seriously, but I figured they couldn't follow up. I mean, Renner did say he would leave the case if he found evidence she was alive, but that doesn't account for all these various cover-ups in North Haverhill and UMass. Anybody in the chat have any questions for Clark here? I also spoke with those 2 podcast guys. Sorry, I can't remember the names. I mean, Tim and Lance, the Missing Maura Murray podcast, the OG podcast. Yeah, Tim and Lance. Yeah, I mean, there's been a number of sightings. There were those sightings in Canada, and there's been a few sightings all across the US, but it just. I mean, what's the theory here? That if Bill Roush and the McDonald's are actually the good guys, and they went to help her because she was in trouble, because that would be a good reason to drop everything you're doing. Why would Bill, and that would be a good reason for Bill Roush to just stay silent the whole time, but I mean, I don't know. What's your theory, Clark? And how did you stumble upon this podcast? Are you a subscriber to the channel because you're interested in the case? Ross Dog's Broken Spirit says, so he saw someone that resembled Maura. Can we move on, please? What kind of an accent did she have, Clark? No accent? Maura's got a pretty distinct Massachusetts accent. Or at least she did. How many people from Massachusetts have you known, Clark? Like born and raised? I don't know if you were here earlier, Clark, but this is her voice.
I haven't heard her voice in 18 years. Until today.
Yeah, we take pictures. My mom left? No. Yeah, we take pictures. Yeah, we take pictures. take picture long.
I mean, her accent's kind of thick. Thick Massachusetts accent. Although, I guess, I don't know. If she was living elsewhere for 10 plus years. Clark says, she said, hi, nice day, and later said, I used to run. I mean, that's enough. That's enough to pick up some kind of Massachusetts accent. I mean, surely there's Massachusetts people at West Point. It's not that far. Hello, Sarah. Clark in the chat says he was a professor at West Point who saw Maura Murray twice in one day, 2013, 2014. One of the times she had 2 children with her. So we are attempting to figure out whether it was Maura or not, or if it was just someone who looked exactly like Maura. Like possibly the Star Wars video, which may or may not be Maura. Clark says, I didn't even know it was a thing till I saw the TV show later. Yeah, I mean, obviously it would have been helpful if you had seen everything about her first, because then you can make a little bit more of a positive idea. It's a shame Renner's not in the chat here. But I will ask him what he makes of this. Miranda says Maura sounds like almost everyone else around here in Massachusetts. Clark says McDonald was Bill Roush's mentor, that a formal function, a sponsor that hosted parties. So what's your theory, Clark? You said you didn't know why Maura left West Point. You're saying that there was a involuntary sex club at West Point that McDonald, Roush, and Julie Murray were a part of. Now, when you say Julie Murray's a part of this club, like, what do you mean by that? On which side of the involuntary? Clark says recruiting others. Like recruiting victims? So she wasn't a victim herself. She was recruiting victims for other people part of the club. Like McDonald and Roush? Is that what you're saying? Again, I do not endorse any opinions or theories from anyone about anything. This is Mindshock, where the motto here is the only thing we know for sure is that we don't know anything for sure, and I do not claim anything is true or untrue. I am simply reading comments here. Clark says, no, think of it like a group keeping score. What does that mean? Keeping score of victims? Oh, that's messed up. Clark says date rape count. So, okay, wow, that's really dark. Conquests. So you're saying Julie Murray recruited people to play the game. So she had nothing to do with finding victims specifically. She's recruiting people to be part of the club. That's a bold claim. So how did you know this? How do you know that Julie Murray, McDonald, and Roush are part of this club? Clark says, I was a sponsor for cadets who told me. Wow. Okay. That's really dark. I have another question for you if you can answer it. What does McDonald's wife know? Clark says, I was the sponsor for the anonymous plaintiff who sued West Point. I wonder if Julie Murray would consent to a brain fingerprint scan in this case. Or Bill or McDonald. What does Christine McDonald know? Why is Christine McDonald walking around the neighborhood with a staged accident scene interviewing neighbors? Why did she and her husband drop everything to drive out for an alleged DUI walkaway? Clark Rice says, I was a professor. I sponsored cadets. One of my students reported an SA. Others subsequently filed in details regarding the Score Club. Clark says, I would suspect Christine McDonald knows the details of Billy Roush, Julie Murray, and Maura Murray affairs? So wait a second. Are you saying Professor McDonald, Bob McDonald, was also part of the club? So professors are part of the club too? They're assaulting students? Clark says he was the host and the sponsor. So he would host parties where this occurred. Yeah, Parma, you would think that West Point would have good security. I mean, this live Q&A took a turn I wasn't expecting, but just this photo that's been unearthed of Maura with the McDonald's, I mean, it's curious. There's no date here, so it's unknown when this was taken. She doesn't quite look like she's younger at West Point, though. This looks like this could have been taken after she had left West Point. So did she keep in touch with the McDonald's? Or, for the really out there theory, was this photo taken after her disappearance? Clark regarding McDonald's says, think of it as a facilitator tailgating off post parties. Huh. Is this more Murray during her West Point days or after her West Point days? Clark says Moore Murray got caught shoplifting. She left before her disciplinary hearing. Renner had her grades and private records. Yeah, I've gone into that alleged shoplifting incident at Fort Knox. Is it possible someone slipped something into her purse as some kind of prank? Someone that didn't like her? I don't know. Clark said, no, it happened. Well, I know the incident happened. I'm saying the circumstances of the incident. Here's the question. Is this Moore Murray that's in the photo with the McDonald's? Was this during her time at West Point, or was this after she had already left West Point? So this is Maura Murray in 2001 here. I don't know the exact date on the photo on the right of that military training exercise, but this is her in 2001 with Bill Rausch there. It's kind of hard to tell at what time this photo with the McDonald's was taken. So this is more, supposedly, I think this was the Christmas prior to her disappearance. So it does look like Maura is younger in this photo with the McDonald's. So perhaps this is from her West Point days. Although she does look a little bit older than in the other West Point photos. What does everybody think? When was this photo with the McDonald's taken? Clark says there's a strict honor code. Rather than face discipline process, she resigned. Yeah, I know that, but how do you know whether or not somebody framed her for that shoplifting incident? Her West Point track coach helped her land at UMass, I think. West Point freshmen plebes are very restricted. No going off campus without a pass, no parties, etc. Lord Zed says, looks like a dorm. Oh, that's a good question. Clark, do West Point dorms look like the background of Maura with the McDonald's there? Clark says, sponsors host cadets to their homes and mentor their careers. Clark says, I completely believe the shoplifting. It's so common. Clark says, that does not look like a West Point dorm. So that might be the McDonald's home or somebody else's home. It does look like Maura is younger in this photo with the McDonald's than in this video with Bill Rausch that might have been taken around Christmas time a few months before her disappearance. These other photos on the right, Maura looks younger than in the photo with the McDonald's. But it is hard to tell. Clark says the photo with the McDonald's looks like on-post quarters. Interesting. Or a day room, maybe. She's in civilian clothes, so maybe an extended stay hotel room. Well, also, look at what McDonald is wearing here. He's wearing shorts and a t-shirt. Is that common dress code for, cadets? Or professors, rather. Clark says it's a party off post. Anybody else in the chat have questions for Clark or any questions of any kind? I mean, that's really all I wanted to go over in this particular episode. A couple of revelations here. It's still, regardless of what happened, the only thing I can think of, if she's the good guy, if Bill Roush and McDonald are the good guys, Clark is asking if I'm sure that that's McDonald. That's how the photo was labeled. I'll bring up a photo of Bob McDonald. So it does kind of look like him. He's got the same hairline, right? I mean, this photo, I believe, is when he's older, but still, it kind of looks like him. Look at that hairline. Wow, it says I'm on Christine McDonald's LinkedIn page. It says she was actually the dean at West Point at one point. This is Christine McDonald from her LinkedIn. And she was the dean of academics at, oh, it was New York Military Academy, not West Point. Okay. This is Cornwall on the Hudson. I mean, it appears that that is the McDonald's. Clark says, I only saw him in passing. I think she was pregnant. Maura? It's the only way Bill Rausch would have been authorized to travel unless McDonald pulled strings. Billy Rausch's DA-31 travel form during advanced training is highly suspect. I think Bill Rausch had contacted McDonald after finding out. Seriously, the West Point connection is not a tangent, it is the thread to follow. I mean, I was looking at West Point pretty hard. So I did 3 episodes on West Point. There's actually even more info regarding West Point. What do you think of the connections, the rumor between that Kate Markopoulos was involved with Bob McDonald? Let's try to keep it on topic in the chat. Because there was that rumor that Kate Markopoulos was involved with a West Point professor. And then supposedly it got squashed, but I don't know. But that could be a reason why, if Kate and Sauer really were Maura's friends, then they might stay quiet if she ran away to start a new life or whatever. Clark said, who attended the McDonald's wedding? With whom? Look, are you going to answer that? The McDonald's wedding. That was... Bill went there with Maura, right? If I remember correctly. And then some were theorizing that Bill's future wife was also there at the time. Or are you saying Markopoulos is involved here? Billy Rausch attended both, not with Maura Murray. Bill Rausch attended? Well, who did he attend with? Who did he attend with? Oh, do you not know? Or was it Markopoulos? And wait a second. So if I remember correctly, so Bill Rausch, not for the McDonald's wedding, but for various parties, he attended the parties with Maura. If I remember correctly, that's what it was. Bill and Maura attended parties at the McDonald's. I'm still not quite understanding. Are you saying everything is connected to this club? To this, what did you call it? The Score Club? Wait, so just to clarify, Clark, write out Markopoulos' name if you're saying that that's who Bill was with. Because I'm shooting a lot of rapid questions and you're saying bingo, but are you saying Bill Rausch attended with Markopoulos? Or are you saying Markopoulos had something going on with McDonald, or both? So, Markopoulos also ran at least one or more races at West Point. So, Markopoulos was physically at West Point on possibly more than one occasion. Clark says, I heard it was not Maura. I'm saying a lot may have happened at the wedding. I just know that I saw Maura here 2013, 2014. I know about the Score Club. I know that it all has roots here. I know that in the Army at that time, Yahoo Groups was being used extensively to organize all kinds of shenanigans. I know that West Point cadets go off post to UMass and other schools to party. So, how closely have you been keeping up with the case recently? Because supposedly Julie Murray actually said that one of, if not the last person Maura spoke to, either on AOL Instant Message or otherwise, was a friend from West Point. Clark says yes. McDonald was facilitating. Do you know who that friend was? You're saying Bill Rausch's old roommate. Not sure if I heard that. Is that who it was? Maura Murray's last known contact with Bill Rausch's old roommate? Apparently, actually, there were two friends, and Julie did not say male or female. Apparently, there were two individuals Maura was still in touch with from UMass, one of which may have been the last known contact. Clark, do you have a theory on why Christine McDonald was interviewing neighbors? Do you think she was checking to see if anybody saw Bill? And it would have been too obvious if Bob McDonald went around and checked, and they thought a woman would be more non-threatening? Clark says, the group, follow the group. Many are active duty still. This is highly sensitive. Actually, Clark, no need to apologize for being so involved. I actually finished going over all the info I was going to go over, so spotlight's on you, my friend. Whatever you want to share. What's your theory, though, on why... So, what you never actually stated your exact theory, so do you not know, or do you simply believe it all goes back to West Point, which I'm not sure I would disagree with that either. It's highly... everything at West Point is highly suspect. And if Bill Rausch's friends... See, again, do you believe Bill Rausch is the good guy or the bad guy? Clark Rice says Bill Rausch is bad. Okay. So then you don't believe he helped Maura disappear with McDonald? Yeah, I'm gonna need to do a little bit more homework. Clark, if you want, you can email me Mindshock at Yahoo, and we could do a Zoom call. Clark says, I am confused because I saw her. I don't get it completely either. So, why was Maura still in? So, you believe Maura left West Point because of some kind of incident regarding the club, or no? She was not a victim of this club. Or she wasn't a victim, but she found out about the club, but then why would she still be involved with Bill Rausch? Yeah, I mean, let's go with the theory that she's still alive here, that you did in fact see her. I mean, how do all these other puzzle pieces fit? So if Maura was scared and so she ran because she was scared, if Bill Rausch's buddies were still keeping tabs on her at UMass while he was in Oklahoma, why is she still in contact with them unless maybe the contact is threatening contact, who knows? Because apparently Kate Markopoulos left a voicemail for Maura asking about what happened with the boy from the party, from Sarah Alfieri's party. Supposedly, Bill Rausch called Maura's voicemail, heard that, and that's why he went ballistic with all the different calls and with trying to get in touch with Kate Markopoulos. So then, did he tell his buddies at West Point to go to UMass or something, and they were there, and that's why Maura felt unsafe and she was going to her dad's hotel because she didn't want to stay in her own dorm because Bill Rausch sent his dogs after her, so to speak. Then she leaves campus altogether. Why is she going up to New Hampshire? Is she trusting people she shouldn't trust? Does she have another circle of friends or acquaintances who say they will help her? And something bad happened, now either she's alive or she's not alive. Wait, Clark is saying she was in the club? Maura Murray was in the club? And she left because of honor problems. So wait a second. So the girls that are in the club, so Julie Murray and Maura Murray, are you saying they basically help recruit other guys so they don't actually have a score of their own? So they're recruiting other guys to abuse other female cadets and keep score? Is that what you're saying? Clark is saying, I think the West Point guys went to UMass. Interesting. Clark says, yes, that's it. That's kind of dark. That's really dark. Parma in the chat says, wink twice if you're, in quotations, teaching there. It's just a cover to remain more or less anonymous. Some of those details definitely ring true. Okay. So are these former West Point cadets? These former West Point cadets are also at UMass with Maura, keeping tabs for Billy Rausch. They're keeping tabs on her for Billy Rausch? Or was one of the guys at the party one of these cadets and Bill Rausch's either former roommate or friend, and Bill Rausch felt betrayed by his friend? Is that another possibility here? It could be one of these weird triangles. Clark says, I think Maura Murray was pregnant. Okay. Or was Maura Murray not in the club and Julie was, and that phone call had something to do with Julie instead of Kathleen? Would that explain some things? Again, once again, this is Mindshock. I do not claim anything is true or untrue. We are musing theories, not claiming any theories are true. I found this post on an old forum from Rob/Christine, posted January 2005. Just give me a second, I'm going to put it on the screen. Along with another image of the McDonald's I found. We have some great memories of Maura. We were lucky enough to have her stay with us several times when she returned to the West Point area. So this photo might have actually been taken after she left West Point and before she disappeared. So that might account for her age in this photo. So it is after she left West Point. Talk about the perfect house guest. She not only helped with dishes and picked up after herself, she even helped with painting rooms and digging fence post holes. No matter what we were up to, she always pitched in. It's now been more than a year since she stayed with us, but we're keeping the guest room ready. We miss her a lot. So did she stay by herself without Bill Rausch at the McDonald's home? Several times. That's a pretty chummy relationship, is it not? That's quite chummy. So Maura was a cadet through mid-January 01. Apparently, according to various articles, Maura and Bill didn't start dating until fall 01. I don't know if that's accurate here. That's kind of weird. Do you have a longer message, Clark? Anybody else have any final questions or comments? We'll round it out here. Many unanswered questions. So apparently Maura Murray stayed with the McDonald's several times after no longer being at West Point, so while at UMass. Possibly even without Bill Rauch. When she returned to the West Point area, or maybe with Bill Rauch, I don't know. Or if Bill Rauch is staying at West Point, she's staying with them. I don't know. One more curiosity here, possibly in line with what Clark is saying. Just this past February, there was a release of a new age-progressed photo of Maura Murray. I mean, just this past February 2024. Authorities released new photo of missing Maura Murray. New Hampshire authorities released this age progression photograph of Maura Murray, who disappeared in northern New Hampshire on February 9th. Officials said they hope this image, produced by FBI analysts, will generate new leads and tips in the case. So is this a head fake to cover up upper agency involvement if she's deceased? Or is this legit? And they want new leads based on an age progressed photo, meaning they think she's alive. It's kind of curious that this came out just this past February. For the 20th anniversary. Huh, what does everybody make of this? A lot of curiosities here, a lot of unanswered questions here. But I'm going to end it here. If Clark has any more info, he can email it in. Maybe Clark will join us again for another live Q&A. But that will be it for now. Hope everybody found another edition of Mindshock True Crime interesting and informative. If you want to help support the podcast, you can donate to our PayPal. Just check the link in the description. You can also become a YouTube member right here on YouTube. Help support the channel that way. Make sure you're subscribed. Like and share. Twitter, Facebook, Reddit, Patreon. This is Bruce McGuire signing off. Catch you guys next time.